Hey guys, with our SQL Server 2014 Express running, we're now going to move towards assigning or creating our Cape Cod database using our SQL SSMS or our SQL Server Management Studio. So let's go ahead and connect to our database now. And with the Object Explorer here, we want to take a look at our database folder. So we're going to right click on the database folder. Once you do that, you'll see you have options. We're going to select new database. If we had other database, we could attach a new database here if we had an existing one. If we were going to do our backup restore, here's where we do our restore. But for right now, let's just focus on creating our new database. Go ahead and click that now. And with our new database window open here, we are going to give it a database name, and we're just going to call it Cape Cod. And we do need to have an underscore in between Cape and Cod. So go ahead and type that now. Once you've got that entered and spelled correctly, then we are just going to hit OK. We want to make sure our database has been created. So we're going to go over here and select it. You may need to refresh this, but if you expand this folder, you can see that there is the database we created. It's that simple. Now we know we don't have anything there, so let's just right click on this and take a look at the properties of our database. We're going to right click, select properties, and then our database properties window is going to pop up and we can see what all is associated with it. And we're going to click on the files selection here under select a page, and here's what we have currently. So there's not a whole lot to see here, but when we create a database, we have a couple files that are standard that are created. This is our main database file, or our main file, MDF, and then we have our Cape Cod log file. So we have a log file for any time we make changes to our database. Now that we've taken a look at this, let's go ahead and close this. Now we want to create some files in our database, but we don't want to use the GUI interface or some type of command line interface. So we're going to use this SSMS environment. So we're going to click on the new query icon here in our toolbar. You can see it's very quick to find there. Once you click that, you're going to see a new window pop open. So with this new tab open, this is our SQL query window. Now we are going to click our Intellisense enabled button to disable Intellisense. So let's go ahead and do that now. Because the reason we're going to do this, in case you're wondering, is it's just a tool for more experienced developers. So we're not going to use that in this exercise here. So let's go ahead and close that Intellisense enabled button now. Now unfortunately, I've found, at least with a couple of the versions of 2014 I've used, you can click this all day long and you don't see any change. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to the Tools menu. Once you're there, we're going to go down here to Options. Then expand your text editor, expand Transact SQL, click on Intellisense, and here's the ability to disable Intellisense. So you simply uncheck that, click OK, and now it's been disabled. Now we can move forward in what we need to do. Now to be able to use those files that we downloaded, those SQL files, let's use File Explorer and make sure we have a folder here in our SQL Server Management Studio folder. It usually gets created in your Documents folder when you're setting up SQL Server. We're going to create a folder called Projects here. So however method you want to use, I'm just going to right click here in my workspace and I'm going to select New and then click Folder. And I'm just going to type in Projects. And I'll open that and then we'll paste those files in there from wherever you have them stored. Just copy them over and put them in here. Okay, now that you have those copied over, let's go ahead and either close or minimize File Explorer. We'll go back in here in our Management Studio. I just want to maximize that for better viewing. Then we're going to go up here to the Open File button. Go ahead and click that now. And we'll navigate to those files that we just copied over. You can see it opens up to our SSMS folder. Double click Projects. And we'll open up our tables script here. So go ahead and select that, click Open. And in our SQL editor, you will see that open up in this space here. Now with this open, you can see in the body here, this is where our SQL statements reside to create our Cape Cod database tables and their relationships. And you can scroll down to look through this. We've already created the scripts, and then we will just run those. But we can go over some of these a little bit at a time. As you're reading, you should be able to recognize this to see exactly what it's trying to do. You can see that we are creating the names of our columns or our entities, the data type, as well as any type of constraints. And I want to make a note when working with SQL, though the software you're using might have different rules, just like with any programming language, best practice when writing SQL scripts is to end your script with a semicolon. Not all, if you've ever used like w3schools.com, they don't require you to do this. In Oracle it is required, so just make sure that you find out, but the best practice is just to practice making sure you always end your SQL script with a semicolon. And you can see up here we've got some comments, and this is how you create comments. Now when you're running your script, the software doesn't look at this, it only looks for its SQL script to run. When you want to make a comment so you can maybe remember why you wrote a line, just like in programming, you can use the /* to begin your note or your comment, and then to end your comment you end it with the reverse of that, with the asterisk and then the /. That's how you create a comment in SQL, especially here in SQL Server 2014. Another quick comment from your reading and just using your SSMS here to, if you select a script, you're going to run it, go ahead and this is where you would do that. You would hit the execute button, or you can use your F5 key on your keyboard. But the execute button here is the command that says, okay, here's my script, now run it against my database. When you go to do that, there is another area that will be created when you run your script, and it will show up here at the bottom of below the editor window, and this will be your message output area, and it'll be a tabbed window, so you'll see the results down here below. So whenever you run your scripts, you always need to, or usually need to, do a refresh to make sure that your information shows up over here. We'll take a look at Cape Cod here. We'll expand that and see what is currently listed there. Here's our tables. You can see that we have our standard system tables and our file tables. When we run this, we should then be able to expand this or refresh it, and we should see the database objects that we create, the tables we create for our Cape Cod database. So while we're over here, if we just want to execute this, hit the execute button, wait to see what type of message we get. It says everything completed successfully. All of the scripts that we had written there were ran. Now you don't see anything here, so we're going to go up and refresh this, and we should see the changes that we expect to see. So if you bring your mouse up here, you'll see the refresh button here. We will just click that. Now we'll expand our tables again, and you see that we now have some new database objects, our tables that were created. And just from the reading, you recall that best practice when naming tables is to do it in all caps, so that's why you'll see that there. If we look here at our scripts here, we'll see we wanted to create a table called retail order. If we look over here, here is our table, retail order. We wanted it to have these type of columns or entities. So if we take a look here at our order item or our retail order, we will see that information there. We'll see our data types. Everything we put in will be there. So we'll expand that. We'll say retail order. We're going to expand that. Take a look at columns. And look there. We have order number, and that is our primary key. We have store number, store zip. So it looks like exactly what we wanted to happen. Look, here are the parameters we've set. That store zip is a character field data type with a limitation of 9, and we will allow null values, whereas order number is our primary key and it's not null, so no empty values can be placed there. This should be done. As you can see, everything we wanted to do is there. There's even a constraint we created where the primary key is an order number, and you can see that the primary key is in fact there. So if we go ahead and we can collapse that now, we see that what we just ran in our SQL scripts did indeed work for our Cape Cod database. If you take a look here, when our tables were created, if you look down here at the bottom right, you'll see there are no rows, which means no data exists in our tables. Well, we want to correct that, so let's run our insert data query and we'll execute it. So we'll do those same steps. We'll go up here to open file and we run this insert data here. Here is where that script or those scripts are listed. You can see we're going to insert data into the retail order data, to the SQU data table, and the other tables. You can see all that information we need is going to be inserted for us. We've already created the script. We simply just need to run it. Now, if you want, you can go back in, you can take a look at these, but you can see as we separate this by a comma in this example here, and we have our parentheses around this row of data, we've got, if you recall, we talked about delimited files. Well, this is essentially that, where we have a delimiter here, our comma, that's going to say, alright, when you execute this, I want you to put a value in one row of, here is my information for the SQU. Now, my next attribute, the SQU description, needs to be this information here. The department is going to be water sports. Then we're going to see our delimiter and say, okay, the next attribute is catalog page, so I want you to enter the value of 23 in there. Another delimiter. Alright, for date on website, I want you to enter January 1st of 2015. So then it went to that. Then it will see at the end of the parenthesis, SQL Server is going to say, oh, okay, there's a comma here outside this parenthesis. That means I need to enter a new row, and it will do the same process for here, all the way until it gets down to the semicolon, which concludes or ends the script. So we'll go ahead and execute that. So here we are. We will execute. And you can see it says one row affected. One row affected. All of those rows that were affected. That's essentially just saying these are rows in each of these tables that were acted upon based on our scripts. So now if we wanted, we could go into look at one of our tables and see that we do indeed have data inside them. Now we can close these two windows here. If you wanted, you could click on one and you'd be able to see if you have any information. If we wanted to open up this database, we could, right click on it, we could go to design, whatever we wanted to run, we could do select top 100 rows. We hit that, it's going to show us the information here, our SQL query for all of our information, and then we can see based on the script we just ran, we have 3 rows of data that were entered based on the script that we just ran. So definitely keep scripts in a safe place, so if you want to use them again or even modify them, you're not doing all the typing from scratch. Let's go ahead and close this window. And now we've got our SQL script window here. We're going to go ahead and just take a look at one of those tables. And let's just go ahead and do that now. Let's go ahead and write a script where we're going to say select all. And we use the asterisk to represent all. Let's use SQU data. That's be this database object right here. So we don't have to write out the fully qualified name here, so we'll just put in SQU data. And just for good practices, we'll keep it just like it's typed in caps. SKU underscore data. Enter. And you can execute this. Now, whenever you go to execute a script, make sure that your database area is correct. In this available database area, you can switch back and forth between databases and the areas here. Make sure you're in the working database that you want to work in before you execute any of your commands. So we'll go ahead and execute this. And now we can see all of the rows, all of the entities for and attributes for that table. So you can see I have 8 records or 8 rows. Here are my column headings and each of the rows of information. That's what we were expecting to see from the information that was in that SQL script that we ran a little bit ago that inserted data into this SQU data table. So hopefully yours looks just like that. If not, you might want to go back and rerun the script, or definitely check your available databases section there to make sure that you are trying to work in the Cape Cod database. Now that we have confirmed our results output, let's go ahead and save this script now. Let's go ahead and click the Save button here. And you can see it says Save SQL Query 1.SQL, and you can see that is the name of the tab here for this query. So we can click the Save button. And we can save, we'll go to our projects folder here. And then we can save this query as SQL query. Let's just put some underscores in here. Or we can just type it, that's fine too. We'll just do capital SQL underscore query. Underscore, we're going to do chapter 2 for this one. Underscore 01 for our first query here. We don't have to do the .SQL because the file extension will automatically be added to it, .SQL. So you can hit save there. And now we have saved this query. If you were going to save it on, in the business world or on your own, you would just give it some name that makes logical sense, so that if you go to reuse it or you want code, you remember you did some type of complex query, you'd be able to easily find that. And you can see that once we save that, our tab here, our SQL query window tab, has been changed to reflect the name of our query. Okay, let's go ahead and close this window by clicking on the X here on this tab. Yeah, we'll go ahead and resave those changes. You may not see that. Now if we go back up here to the Open File button, click that. See our SQL script dialog box here, and we're going to select the script that we just put in there. We'll open that. Now we're going to add some data to this. We're going to change this a little bit up. We're going to paste some data in here, or change this data. We can do a Control A to select everything. And we're going to put this data here in. We don't need this. Now we've got our comment block here that says what type of statements we're going to put in here. And you can see that we're going to add a separate comment line for each of our scripts. So go ahead and get this typed up and make sure that this is our first script here. Select SKU, SKU description, department, and buyer from our SQU underscore data table. Make sure to go ahead and get that typed now. Now you can hit the back button here if you make a mistake, and you go to the edit and go to undo, which I've just did, so I can't go back any further. Or if you want to redo something, you can redo it. Let's go back and undo everything until we get the script that was there before we pasted. So let's go ahead and go right to that line. Let's hit the enter key a couple times. And now we'll paste that new information up top again. Or type it if you need to type it, so that we still have our original one there. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a separate comment line for that script now. And what we'll do is we'll just copy this here. And we'll paste it down here right above this script here. And we'll call this chapter 2-02. Even though it really was our first one, we're just going to go ahead and give it a name of 2. This is the one we ran earlier. And just for good semantic reasons, I'm going to hit the enter key here to create a little bit of space in between there, even though it's not going to see it as a script. I just want to go ahead and do that now. And let's not forget to put our semicolon here. Alright, so we have 2 different scripts here. We have this one here, and I'll just go ahead and enter that. There we go. So we have this one here that will select these fields, all the information, the rows that meet, and display these fields from my SQL data table. And this one will select all information from the SQL data table. So now you should have 2 scripts listed there. Alright, let's save this new group of queries here. We're going to go to File. We're going to do a Save As. You can see we're going to do this one here, the Save SQL Query Chapter 2-01 SQL As. Click that. We're going to change this to Cape Cod Chapter 2 SQL Queries, and this will allow us to have multiple scripts in this one query, or multiple queries in this single SQL script file. So we can go ahead and save that now, and it's now saved under that new name. You'll see the tab change there. Now if you want to run one of these queries, select what you want to run. So we'll just select this query here. We'll execute that. I made sure that my available database is the Cape Cod. And I'll see my results window pop up, and we'll see those 8 files that we expected to see here with just the SQL description, department, and buyer fields being shown. Now if I select this one, execute it, 8 fields as well, but you do see that we have each of these fields because that's all of the fields that are in there anyway. But we have successfully ran these 2 queries, so when you know they work, you can save them again if you want. But then we can close out this script at this query window here, tab, and now you've been exposed a little bit to writing some scripts using your SQL Server Management Studio tool for Server 2014 Express.